Hey, welcome back. This is part 2 of our video series that I'm doing with my girls, Christine and Janice, in which we are having a conversation about the questions to ask when evaluating sexual assault series that I'm doing. And if you missed part 1, go back and watch it. It was great. We talked a little bit about how to evaluate credibility. And when a man is accused, sometimes it's a woman, but in most cases it's a man. When a man is accused, how do we evaluate? Is he telling the truth or is she telling the truth, right? So that was what that last video is about. Today's video, what we're talking about is once we take it as a given that the assault or the harassment happened, we know it's a fact. The question is, what then? What should be the consequences for the man involved? And this is a question that we as a country are wrestling with. We don't have an answer to that. And, it's been about a year now that we've had men being knocked off of their platforms, in some cases being fired because of the credible allegations of sexual assault. And people, especially those men, are asking, well, how long do I have to stay in feminist jail? Is this forever? And we've got a few men that are starting to poke their heads back up again and try to come back out. The most notable example, I think, is Louis C.K. He's a comedian. He was credibly accused, and he fully admitted. He's like, yeah, the things that they've accused me of, I totally did. I was a dickhead. I was bad. And a year later, he is back performing again. He showed up at the Comedy Cellar in New York about 2 months ago, I think, and he did a set. And a bunch of the audience loved it and applauded, but a bunch of people walked out and there were some boos. You can't really hear it on the audio, but not everybody loved it. And the owner of the Comedy Cellar recently gave an interview to the New York Times, and in which he basically said, look, I'm a Comedy Store owner. I don't know the answers to these questions. I've asked people and I've said, well, how long should Louis C.K. be punished for what he did? And some people have said to me, forever. He never gets to be a comic ever again. And the Comedy Cellar owner is like, that doesn't seem right. He can never work again in his chosen profession. And he said, but I don't know how to answer these questions. I don't know when he gets to come back. I'm a Comedy Store owner. This is not for me to figure out. And that's what we're here to do today, is to give him answers, as well as every director of HR and book group, every community, every group in society needs to have an independent ability to figure this out and make these decisions. We cannot allow our criminal justice system to be our guide. We cannot say, well, if he was never convicted in a court of law, I guess he did nothing wrong. That's not going to fly. But we also can't just put men in feminist jail forever. One of the other men who I want to talk about in this video today is Al Franken. And the reason I want to talk about him is because he is somebody who had allegations of misconduct against him that were, first of all, were rather mild on the spectrum. They were wrong. They were bad, not excusable, but they were mild. He didn't rape anybody. And they happened a long time ago. And it certainly seems that whatever idiocy lived in his mind and heart then has gone away. He's figured out that was inappropriate behavior, and you can't behave like that, and he no longer does behave like that. So these are some things we want to talk about. To what extent are these important, and how do they factor in? And another very important question, and it's maybe the most nebulous one and maybe the best fodder for conversation, is what is a man supposed to do to, first of all, undergo that process that I'm taking for granted Al Franken underwent to actually transform inside himself from a juvenile guy that's like, this is really funny, to humiliate women and, be discriminatory against them, into a guy that's like, no, I need to be a better man. So what does he actually need to go through? And then secondly, what does he need to do to demonstrate to us? And whether it's the general public, whether it is just the people in his company, whatever the group is we're talking about, what the society that he wants to be welcomed back into, what do we do?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there's obviously no black and white answer. You can't go, oh, well, he grabbed his assistant's ass 5 years ago, so he should never work again in his field. Or, I mean, it obviously depends on the severity of the actions, of course. But I think a huge piece of, being allowed kind of back into society and being kind of given a second chance is really the remorse there. Like when you think of, Brock Turner, who's someone who's still vehemently denying that he had raped this girl and is still very angry that he doesn't have a chance to, go back to Stanford or he has to live with this, sex offender label. But the problem is you still don't get it. Like you're still not remorseful. You're still blaming this woman. In my personal opinion, well, then you still should kind of be ridden from society and you need to be in your timeout for kind of a while before you think so.
Any violent attack on a woman, whether it's attempted rape or sexual assault or whatever, that you're done.
Right.
Like, sorry.
Yeah, that's a severe.
You can apologize, of course, but I'm like, if you even got to that place, that's completely different from like Al Franken.
Yeah.
Where, when he was a comedian, and comedians are immature. A lot of them, sorry, that I've been around or that I've seen. And that's okay. A lot of times it's like, that's what they need to do to be funny, but then there's a line you can cross, and he crossed a line, and I don't think that he should have resigned so quickly. Maybe eventually he would have needed to after more was looked into, or we could hear more from him. But what's his name?
Brock Turner.
Brock Turner.
And I think the question there is really he's so young, he could really blossom into this, you know what I mean?
Well, sure. As soon as he can apologize and actually understand 100%. The severity of what he did, maybe we can talk about that then.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you brought up a couple of interesting ideas. The first one is what you said is, if you committed a violent physical sexual act, you're done. And so what that raises is, first of all, does that mean that we abdicate responsibility to our criminal justice system? Because in that case, that's a crime.
Right.
And Bill Cosby has now been convicted in a criminal court. Harvey Weinstein is going to be facing a judge, a jury soon.
Yeah.
There's Eric Schneiderman. Well, he was the Attorney General of New York that was credibly accused of violently sexually assaulting several of his lovers. Presumably, he's going to be facing criminal charges, but not in all cases. In some cases, there's a situation of statute of limitations or lack of evidence, and we also certainly know that there is a long-standing I'll say prejudice against women and against these charges in our criminal justice system. We've got lots of people. The Washington Post just did a huge story about a month ago of the woman whose name I can't remember, but who was raped as a teenager. And she told the mother of the boy who raped her, "This just happened to me." And it was just so open and shut, this is what happened to her. But the town rallied behind the two boys that raped her. And the courts found them innocent.
How many times have we seen that happen?
Right. So there's that question of criminality. And so for that reason, I think that we cannot rely upon our criminal justice system.
100%.
We have to come up with consequences. And so when you say they're done, that does raise nuanced questions. Like when you say, if we're talking about men of power, men who have a platform, okay, so fine. So their platform is stripped away. You don't get to speak on the radio. You don't get to be in elected office. You don't get to be the CEO or manager of a company, right? You're done. You don't get power. But are you allowed to work at all? I mean, that's an interesting question to me,
Right.
What kinds of jobs are you allowed? Can you be a veterinarian? Can you be a clerk at Best Buy?
Right.
Can you be a computer technician? What are you and what aren't you allowed to do if we know that you are someone who has committed
unfortunately
violent sexual assault?
Not very much. I mean, if you're a felon, there's not a lot of opportunity.
But if you're not a felon, let's imagine that the criminal justice system did nothing. But your community, however we're defining it, has determined, you raped that woman.
I guess if it's something that's so well known, if it's, maybe not a Weinstein level of notoriety, but it's something like the community, everybody in the community knows what's happened, or everybody in the city knows or the city or the state.
What is the principle?
So I guess the person is whoever might hire them is going to have to somehow justify their desire to hire somebody who is so horrible.
Right. And it depends
how
on the field. Like, it's not like Matt Lauer can go back and host like Good Morning America because he left the Today Show because of all of his antics, right? Like, he's there talking to American families every morning. And like, frankly, like, he's fine. Like, he made a lot of money. Like, I'm sure he can survive not being in the public eye. It's totally fine. I think going back to the topic of, kind of like nonviolent offenses and, for instance, like I think of Aziz Ansari, where that was a story that was super controversial because no one really understood like, okay, well, how severe is what he did? And I think in his particular situation, like he admitted that something went wrong and that he, was sorry for it. And he kind of disappeared from the public eye for just a couple of months. And he's resurfaced a little bit, kind of low key, where he's just posted like, not even his photo, but Instagram pictures saying like, I'm performing at this club or whatever. In that particular situation, I wouldn't maybe say like, okay, you're able to maybe, I would like you to come back and work and support yourself and support a family or whatever. Just given. But
what do they need to do? And because another example, and with the another example is Jian Ghomeshi. He's the Canadian media personality, broadcaster, who was accused 4 years ago of violently sexually assaulting 20 different women. And it went to court, and he was acquitted. 6 women, I think, came into court, and he found innocent of all charges. And he just recently wrote a big essay in the New York Times review of books, I think, or I think that's what it was. And basically saying, it's been so hard for me these last 4 years, and whatever. So if we and most women and liberals attacked him and said, we don't want to hear from you. And specifically, the thing was, you're not remorseful. You are not acknowledging that you harmed these women. And he's explicitly not. He's explicitly denying it. So if we're going to allow men to come back, what do they need to do? And how do they need to demonstrate? Either on like a baseline level or on a profound level. What do we think about that? That's hard, right?
I mean, it is hard. That's the whole thing, is that like there's no remorse there, and there's still this need to support themselves and their family.
I think it seems like if there is remorse, or they do admit it, or even if they have a different opinion on what happened, they still don't think they did anything wrong, but there is a person saying you hurt me in X, Y, and Z ways. They should, if they are able to have a conversation and try to make some sort of amends and try to say, if I don't remember the same way as you do, but I'm so sorry for putting you in this position, that you had to lose your job or that you had to leave your job because of me, or, if there's some course of action that they're taking to just try to make the situation better in any way to their supposed alleged victims, I think that could help. But that's totally up to the person who was affected. Like, I can't say what could work because I'm not in their shoes.
And then I think some men take some little steps, but then they still get yelled at, and in my opinion, justifiably so, because it's so superficial. Right. And it's so not real. Like they make like a hollow apology, and not to bring, deeply partisan politics into it, but I think Bill Clinton is a great example.
Yes.
He has theoretically acknowledged, certainly we all know that the Monica Lewinsky thing is a fact. There's no denying about that. There's still the Juanita Broderick accusations of rape, and he's never acknowledged that he in fact raped her. I believe that he did. But as in the last year, as he and Hillary have come out and trying to, be back on the political stage, he is not taking responsibility. He's not acknowledging what he did. It's hollow. He has not undergone an introspective path.
Maybe we don't really know, because maybe he has, but he's not being
certainly
public.
He's not expressing it.
Right. Maybe he's not being public about it because it could make things worse, or it's just maybe not valuable to society for him to drag up all these old things. Like, maybe he has made amends personally, or, whatever with his church. I don't know if he's religious or not, but so, but I just don't think that we can assume that,
but should that be part of the criteria? Like, if in fact you were a man of power and visibility and platform, and you now have been credibly accused of doing these things wrong, maybe you do in fact have to publicly make amends in order for us to,
if you're a public figure,
right,
welcome you back.
I was just going to ask you guys the question as far as, okay, let's say Matt Lauer or Al Franken come out publicly and say, you know what, I'm a changed man. I want to come out and like really promote and support the Me Too movement,
Yeah.
like, kind of similar to people who were in gang activity and they come back and they,
totally.
join a nonprofit and they want to teach kids to not be a part of that, that environment. If they were to come out and really denounce their actions and promote kind of like the movement here, would we believe it?
I think so. And I think, and frankly, I think that's what Al Franken did. And what I want to say is I think that a big part of what a man needs to do in order to demonstrate that he has reformed is he needs to successfully find words that are authentic and compelling. And I think Al Franken did. On a couple of occasions, he really took responsibility. He said, I've acted badly. I've hurt people. There's a few things I didn't do. I'm just flat out denying a couple of these things. And there's a couple that I remember differently than I'm being accused. But you know what? I was kind of a schmuck. And I behaved badly, and I'm really sorry. And I want you, let's have a conversation about this. Give me a hearing. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what I did wrong and what we need to go do going forward. That's what we wanted to hear. And I think that's why America, certainly liberal America, was in favor of keeping him around. And then, we got cut off at the knees by the senators who decided that he had to get rooted out of there because we had a Roy Moore election and, we needed to have the sacrificial lamb so we could take the high road when it came to that.
Well, and I agree with you too, because if you think of any kind of minority movement that has had progression, it's always with a group kind of like, like a group like men or white males to kind of join in and support that movement.
Yeah.
I mean, the civil rights movement wouldn't have had as much traction as it did at that time had, JFK and other politicians kind of promoted that.
Yeah. Took years though.
It took a long time, but that's what kind of helped the situation because it brought in other perspectives.
Well, I tell you, this is a complex topic. I think we've shown a little bit of light on it anyway today, but there's lots more to be Discussed. Sure. Yes. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Christine and Janice, you've been awesome. Thank you for watching and participating. Please leave a comment in the comment sections down below. I really want to hear what you have to say. Let's keep this conversation going. Let me know what are the questions that we didn't fully explore. What do you want to hear us explore more in the next couple videos for this series? Thanks very much for joining us. My name is Julia Kline, and have a great day.